What if I told you that the image of seniors in rocking chairs is one of the biggest lies we've been sold? Forget what you think you know about getting older, because a wave of new research is dropping some serious bombshells. The numbers on how many people over 60 have active, fulfilling sex lives aren't just surprising, they're changing the entire conversation. We've been led to believe that as the years add up, the fires of passion die down, and intimacy becomes a fond, distant memory. Well, today we're smashing that stereotype to pieces with what the numbers actually say. We're looking at major national health studies that reveal what's really going on in the bedrooms of adults over 60, 70, and even 80. Trust me, these aren't your grandmother's statistics. Unless, of course, your grandmother is having a much better time than you think. Stay tuned, because the truth about senior sex is more active, more satisfying, and a whole lot more interesting than you can imagine. All right, let's jump right into the biggest myth of them all. The idea that after a certain age, your sex drive just packs it in. Society has painted this picture of a passionless twilight, but the data tells a radically different story. A major study, the National Social Life, Health, and Aging Project, gives us a clear picture. A majority of adults, 53%, are sexually active between the ages of 65 and 74. Yes, more than half. As you might expect, that number goes down with age, but it's nowhere near zero. Even in the 75 to 85 age group, about 26% are still sexually active. Another major poll from the University of Michigan backs this up, finding that 40% of all people between 65 and 80 are sexually active. That's 2 out of every 5 people in that age bracket. This isn't some small niche group. We're talking about a huge portion of the senior population. And it's not just happening. The desire is there too. The same poll found that nearly 2/3 of older adults say they are interested in sex, whether they are currently active or not. More than half go even further, stating that sex is important to their overall quality of life. The evidence is overwhelming. The libido doesn't expire, it evolves. People don't just hit 65 and hang up a closed for business sign. The desire for intimacy and connection is a lifelong human experience, and the numbers are finally here to prove it. So, the idea that older adults are universally past their prime isn't just a myth. It's a lazy stereotype that needs to be retired for good. Now let's tackle the next big misconception, that when we talk about sex in later life, we're really just talking about men. The stereotype suggests that older women have largely left desire behind, but the data reveals a far more complex and empowering reality. While men do report being sexually active at higher rates, a University of Michigan poll found 51% of men 65 to 80 were active, compared to 31% of women. The story doesn't end there. Here's the real bombshell. When it comes to sexual satisfaction, women often have the edge. The same University of Michigan poll revealed that women were more likely to be extremely or very satisfied with their sex lives than their male counterparts. A stunning 43% of women reported this high level of satisfaction, compared to just 31% of men. So, while men might be having sex more frequently, women are often reporting higher quality experiences. This suggests that women's satisfaction is tied to a broader definition of intimacy that isn't solely dependent on intercourse. The narrative that older women are disinterested or disengaged is simply wrong. The desire for intimacy is strong, and for many women, the focus on emotional connection and varied forms of pleasure leads to a more fulfilling sex life than ever. It's not a man's thing, it's a human thing, and women are finding their own path to satisfaction. How about that for flipping the script? If you're finding these statistics as eye-opening as I am, take a second to hit that subscribe button. We're all about busting myths with real data here. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these statistics has surprised you the most so far? Let's get a conversation started. This brings us to our third and maybe most important myth. The idea that even if seniors are still physically intimate, it's some watered-down version of what they had in their youth. The assumption is that sex becomes purely about routine, and that adventurous or varied sexuality fades away. This could not be further from the truth. The definition of a healthy sex life simply evolves, and for many, it gets better. A huge part of this is the expansion of what sex even means. While intercourse may become less frequent, other forms of intimacy come to the forefront. And one area where the data is truly surprising is oral sex. Research from the NSHAP study found that oral sex is a significant and common activity. Among sexually active people in the 75 to 85 age group, nearly a third reported oral sex in the past year. This isn't just about replacing one act with another. It's about a broader, more meaningful approach to intimacy. Research increasingly shows that these acts are deeply connected to relationship quality and psychological well-being. Furthermore, the idea that satisfaction universally declines is a complete fallacy. A poll of adults aged 65 to 80 found that a whopping 73% were satisfied with their current sex life. The focus shifts from performance to connection, emotional intimacy, and shared pleasure. Hugging and touching become just as central to the experience. Many couples report that this later life intimacy, free from the pressures of youth, is the most emotionally fulfilling they've ever had. So, is good sex over? Absolutely not. For many, it's just being redefined in a way that is deeper and more meaningful than ever before. Finally, we have the myth that older adulthood is a time of romantic closure. The story goes that if you're single in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, your days of dating and finding a new sexual partner are over. You're supposed to settle into quiet solitude. But once again, the data tells a story of dynamism, not finality. First, let's look at the landscape. According to the Pew Research Center, about 1/3 of adults over 65 in the United States are single. For women over 65, that number is even higher, at nearly 49%. That's a huge population of people who are not in a committed relationship. And while many aren't actively looking for a partner, a significant portion are still in the dating game. In fact, people over 60 are a fast-growing demographic in online dating. About 13% of adults 65 and older have used a dating site or app. They're using platforms to find everything from companionship to new romantic and sexual relationships. This isn't just about finding someone for dinner. Data from one poll showed that 76% of older adults agree that sex is an important part of a romantic relationship. What's interesting is how priorities shift. Researchers have found that older daters tend to focus less on appearance and more on honest self-representation and genuine compatibility. Women, in particular, prioritize traits like trustworthiness and emotional support. This mature approach can lead to incredibly strong and fulfilling new relationships. The idea of being too old for a new spark is a social construct, not a biological reality. The drive to connect, love, and share intimacy is lifelong, and millions of seniors are proving it every day by swiping right on a whole new chapter. So, it turns out the stereotypes of the sexless senior are just plain wrong. The data paints a vibrant and, for many, a shocking new picture. We've seen that a huge percentage of adults over 65 are not just interested in sex, but are actively enjoying it. We've busted the myth that this is a domain driven only by men, discovering that older women often report even higher levels of sexual satisfaction. We've uncovered that the definition of a good sex life evolves, with a focus on different forms of intimacy that are deeply connected to happiness. And we've seen that the door to new romance and passion never truly closes, with a growing number of seniors actively dating and forming meaningful connections. The message from all this data is one of empowerment. Intimacy, desire, and sexuality are not the exclusive property of the young. They are fundamental parts of being human that continue to evolve, adapt, and bring joy throughout our entire lives. These numbers don't just challenge our assumptions, they should challenge us to have more open conversations about aging and to throw out the outdated, ageist narratives that have dominated for far too long. Life, in all its complexity and passion, doesn't stop at 65. In many ways, it's just getting interesting. If this video gave you something to think about, go ahead and subscribe. This channel is for people who are aging in real time, asking better questions and refusing to check out quietly. Leave a comment. I read them. Tell me what surprised you or what you're still figuring out. This is Aged and Confused. Still curious, still learning, still very much alive.